Let's get to story number two. Story number two: overworked and left with no choice but to prescribe pain medicine. The life of a doctor. Folks, if you haven't been keeping aware, story number two is has been staying alive. It's been hanging on by a thread because of the fact of the opioid crisis. There's been so many stories about just drugs and how people get addicted to drugs that have surfaced. There were some stories that I found about, they were talking about this new medical marijuana and how some people are just very, very upset. The fact that, I remember watching Batman, and in the movie, I believe it was the mayor or one of the movies where he was he used this analogy basically saying that those who are defending the rights of the people, the good people, cannot lower their bar to try to create justice. If the writer was trying to portray that with the script, I'm sure that's the point that I got. I don't know what everybody else got, but in the movie, I think it was a part. I can't remember what part it was, but he was basically talking about the standards of justice and how the justice system has to hold a higher standards because if they lower the bar, then the criminal will have a right to justify what they're doing. And we see this in multiple cases with doctors and how they're trying to care for their patients. But what I found out from asking questions and doing some reading is that some of these doctors have been left with no choice but to prescribe pain medications for their patients. And the fact that these patients have been starting to abuse their prescriptions is very, very scary. And I talked about this last week. You go to, I was at a fundamentalist church for a while, and if you don't know the term pharmaceutical, it's no different from witchcraft. But I'm not saying that doctors are witchcraft. But the scary part about medicine is the fact that medicine is being prescribed with no intent of getting off of the medications. People are suffering from back pain, they're getting major surgeries, and they're left with no choice but to go to the doctors to get some type of medication prescribed. And it's creating a world of conversation now because if you do your research on the I believe it's a Hippocratic oath where they talk about how the doctor is supposed to have certain understandings when it comes to their patients. But now we're in a day and age where people are actually getting to the point where if they get off the medication, they may go crazy, they may go through withdrawals, they may have to take another supplement to take over the medication. And I don't see this story when we talk about how doctors are now overworked and some of them are left with no choice but to prescribe pain medications. There were some doctors locally who even got busted selling prescription drugs illegally. So it's created a big problem. There was a story that surfaced about how a wrong Chicago family took somebody off life support. It was a mistaken identity. I think it was they took the wrong person off life support. So this shows you that there's a lot of exhaustion going on in the medical field. And then we have the fact that people are trying to get doctors to go down to the border. Folks, this is a field that few make it through, especially when you talk about getting through college. The field of medicine, to be in the medical industry and then you have people who are chained, who are obsessed with weed, and now that you see people taking these drugs and trying to get in the medical field, then you have drug dealers prescribing, not I wouldn't say prescribing, but giving people heroin and cocaine, and so this medicine, this witchcraft has gotten so bad that it's not only tampered with the legitimate system, but it's tampered with the black market. You can go to any inner city right now, and you will find tons of people who have said they've used drugs multiple times. So now you have medical marijuana facilities, people who are thinking that. So the thing is have we lowered our bar? And nobody wants to hear about any of the old school way of thinking. Nobody wants to hear about biblical knowledge or wisdom. I mentioned this constantly about how it tells you some trees were just not to be eaten off of, and There's a lot of people eating off the trees. There was a story that also surfaced about how the 4th of July fireworks, how every year thousands of Americans are sent to the ER just for messing with fireworks. And it's just amazing how people can't even afford health care, but they can afford to get fireworks. And no matter what analyst you go through, it's like, when you look at these stories, if you have to engage and do what I do every week, sometimes I have to kind of go for a walk in the park, and I have to fan myself off because it gets hot. And it's amazing how you read these stories and you see repetition every time. You see patterns. There was even a story that surfaced about an Indiana man who was 20 years old. He woke up at his own funeral after being pronounced dead by doctors. Now, you cannot tell me that this is not a medical mistake because of exhaustion. Doctors are probably tired. And there was a story that surfaced recently about how a doctor was getting into it with his wife, and he was on the medical floor, and he got arrested at the hospital. So doctors are probably going through a lot. They're probably tired of all of these addicts coming to them wanting more medicine. They're probably exhausted. This is a strenuous field. And if you talk about justice, there's no justice going to school your entire life and then having to realize that you have to, that these people that you're trying to treat are only coming to you for drugs. It can be an exhausting field. They even talk about how psychologists, how this is one of the most suicidal fields that there is. They say a lot of psychologists commit suicide. There was even a story that surfaced about how California is broad in investigations, I guess, of some doctors have been issuing questionable vaccine exemptions. So you cannot tell me that the medical field is not, there has to be a change. And I think a lot of doctors are trying to be truthful with their patients. They're trying to send them to gyms, trying to send them to therapy. But this field is probably, and then you have to think of the people who don't understand what's going on. Some people may be blaming these doctors, suing them, trying to get workman's comp or trying to get some type of a benefit, and they may be going to the doctor, putting the doctor in an awkward position. This is story number 2. Maybe there was a story that surfaced about how hospitals were suing because some people couldn't pay their medical bills. Priorities may have to change, and there may have to be a restructuring of things, because if these candidates believe that people are going to get free Medicare, look at the reality of the situation. Doctors are exhausted. It's a hard field to get into, and you have to be unique. You have to get through the classes. So story number 2, this story probably, and we're getting close to 2020 election. Folks, this story is going to stay alive. I guarantee you. You're in the media with me, Brian West, where it's my duty every week to give you the top 8 headlines in developing news stories. Stories that are good for you. Stories that you need to learn about. Stories that may want to inspire you to do your own research. If you want to help me out or do anything for me, if you want to be a part of mediation or be a mediator yourself, you want to help out in any type of way, all you have to do is visit www.methodinc.com, methodinc.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something, or just sponsor a program. My 9 to 5 consists of serving. I've been injured on active duty, and this is all I do. I go through stories every week, reading book after book. This is my divine destiny. As a child, I was raised up and put up to the sun as this one will mediate. And the wise men gathered around me, and they shook my hand and tickled me a little bit, and I smiled. I said, and that's what it was about. It was love back then. And that's what I'm spreading out to you, some pure love through mediation. I'm opening up like a flower, and I'm giving it to you, and you can take it. This love's for you, baby. So if you want to contribute, all you have to do is visit www.methodinc.com, methodinc.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, or just read something. I think James Brown said it himself. It's a mediator's world.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The mediator is here.